Welcome back, everyone. We are here today, Ashanti and Ernest, for another episode of the Law Biblical Mechanics podcast. This is episode 13. Can you believe it already?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, time is moving. We are now in spring season, which I love the spring. I love summertime. So, as always, we're going to get started with Ernest, giving us something for the week, a scripture to go off of, keep our strength while we have to walk our daily walk here on this earthen plane as stewards.
Yes.
So go ahead and get us started, Ernest.
Well, thank you, Ashanti, and it's great to be with you all today. It's just a lot going on in this season, and one of the biggest things we wanted to talk about today was servant leadership. I think going through the last couple of months in my role, in my position, and in the field that I'm in, it's definitely becoming more and more of an issue. And that's something that I think we need to home in on and really dive deep on. So I want to start with a quick scripture. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's John chapter 13. And if you're familiar, as Jesus and his disciples, they were getting ready to celebrate Passover. They rented an upper room to have the Passover meal. And some historians actually said that they forgot to hire a servant. The servant typically prepares everything and actually does foot washing. And what ended up happening is they forgot it wasn't there. And so some of the disciples were arguing over who was the greatest because evidently nobody want to wash somebody's nasty, stinky feet. And especially in that kind of climate where there's a lot of dust and dirt and things of that nature, it would seem to be one of the lowest roles that you can have. But it was very important. But really, I'm starting in at verse 4 where it talks about that what ended up is Jesus ended up pouring water into a wash basin and ended up washing the disciples' feet. And of course, he came to Simon Peter, and Simon Peter basically, I'm paraphrasing, why are you washing my feet? You're the master, you're the leader of us. You should not be washing people's feet, especially mine, especially the disciples' feet. It was beneath you. And he basically told him in verse 12. So when he finished washing their feet and had put on his garments and sat down, he said to them, do you understand what I have done to you? Or done for you. And he called me the teacher, master, and Lord. And he said, you're right for doing so, for this is what I am. And then he said, if I then, your Lord and teacher, master, have washed your feet, you ought, it is your duty and obligation, and you owe it to wash one another's feet. For I have given you this as an example so that you should do in your turn what I have done for you. And so it goes on down, and he basically says that, a servant is no greater than his master. And if I, being the master of all, am willing to humble myself and to do a role that you think is menial and trivial, then you all should be able to do it for yourselves. So again, that's a major concept when you get to servant leadership. And I had a couple of bullet points. The first one was Jesus' love is unconditional, unselfish, and undeserving. Number one, love serves. And that's in any capacity, whether it's an organization, relationship, whatever have you. You should be willing to outdo everybody when it comes to service. Also, Jesus had nothing to prove. Insecure people are into titles. Secure people are into tiles. So again, insecurity and people thinking that this is beneath them, he was showing that if you want to be the greatest, you're going to have to be able to serve and to get down and do things that most people don't want to do. And lastly, servant leadership, they initiate. They see a need and they meet it head on. Foot washing is an act of humility and sacrifice. So again, we want to think about that. And again, we talked about in one of our earlier podcasts about ego. If you haven't had a chance to go back through some of our previous clips on Instagram and YouTube, I really highly suggest you do that. One of the biggest one was ego and leadership. And again, another scripture, Proverbs 16 and 18, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a big fall. So I was able to deep dive that when I was studying for this. And if you really think about it, pride announces destruction. So pride comes first, then it's destruction. Why? Because pride, you're operating outside of something that's a false construct. You're thinking yourself more highly than you ought to think. In other words, there's facts and there's truth. And a lot of times, because of our observation, association, and teaching, and what we've been taught about who a leader is and who should be following leaders and things of that nature, we get into a false sense of confidence, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is you want to humble yourself, number one, and as a leader, figure out again, what does the group need? What do they need to be successful? And you need to be the first one to provide the example for the group to say that even though I'm the leader and I'm the person that's in charge, I'm willing to do everything I need to do to make sure all of you all do well and that we produce. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to do anything else that I'm not willing to do. This is a very key principle in servant leadership. So I just want to point that out.
Yes, those are gems to follow by humility, having this ego, as we always speak of, less of. And with all of that being said, I want to ask, being the chosen or the leader oftentimes require a lot of alone time and loneliness. How would you say leaders should effectively know how to do both, like a balance, have the isolation for when it's time to breathe and then come back even stronger? What would you suggest with all that's been said?
Well, Ashanti, that's very interesting. And in this season right now, there's a lot of things going on in our organization. And as a leader, everybody pulls on you, right? And so a lot of times, if you're a high achiever or someone that's a type A personality, you're always going to be the first one there and the last one to leave. You're going to pour it out. You're going to leave everything on the table. There are certain triggers that you have to look at. Number one, irritation. Number two, lack of emotional empathy. When you start seeing those things happen, and lack of listening skills, when those things start to wane, you could be running on empty. So you have to have certain boundaries that you set as a leader to make sure that once you hit those type of issues that you know in yourself that you need to pull back.
Yeah.
And that means, sometimes going on vacation, working remotely, being able to have some alone time. And when you're supposed to be with yourself and doing things, don't start getting busy doing other things, because this time is going by really, really quickly. In 2026, it's a lot going on right now. And sometimes you have to unplug from social media too as well. Emails, deadlines, calendars. So you have to set up personal boundaries yourself. You should know internally when you're running on E. A lot of times that's very difficult, but you have to develop that skill, because if not, your abilities as a leader will start to wane, and it'll affect you physically too as well.
So let's talk about that, about spiritual burnout. What would you describe that as? Like, I know you're saying like when you feel empty, the things to do, but how do you build boundaries around that time where you are feeling spiritually burnt out and you can't give you 100%?
Well, that's interesting. Again, the Bible provides a lot of examples. And one of it was the prophet Elijah, when he called fire down on the prophets of Baal and destroyed them. And then he did all of this good stuff. And then another case, he was in the wilderness and he was so exhausted mentally, spiritually, that he wanted to die. And God told him to get up and get yourself together, so on and so forth. I think it's key, right? So you have to do that on purpose. And again, it's a situation where, for me personally, there are certain times I have to put it in and schedule that, just like I schedule anything else, whether it's vacation or whether it's time that I'm going to be offline. And sometimes your friends and your associates are like, wait, what happened to you? I haven't heard from you in such and such a time. And it's not that you're being mean or that you're being standoffish. You're protecting your personal space. Jesus did all of these things with miracles, and then he disappeared into the mountains. Anybody that's familiar with Superman, he went to, I forgot what mountain he went to, Kryptonite or whatever the case is, or Krypton or whatever, but he disappeared too as well. And I think it's important because it's a spiritual regeneration that you need.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of it, number one. And number two, you have to schedule it, because if you don't schedule it, next thing you know, you'll go weeks and months. And what you don't want to have happen is now you're having a physical situation because you're tired, you're susceptible, your immune system is not what it should be. Because the more responsibility and the higher you move up, the more you have to be cognizant of that. And that's the same thing in a personal relationship, families, and things of that nature, because we like to give. I mean, we're natural creators and we're natural givers, but there was a Sabbath day. When God created the earth, it was 7 days and he rested. So if God rests, who are we? Are we better than the creator? So we have to rest as well. So the Sabbath day is there, and as an example that we have to regenerate. And that's why he said 6 days you'll work, but then the seventh day you need to rest. And the rest is the regeneration that's there. And it's just that we're wired that way. So again, I would just suggest that you make it intentional, just like anything else. Any other schedule that you would have, you make that intentional as well.
Okay, and that gets right into people pleasing, right? Because sometimes it could come to a point of like, oh, I have so many people to serve. How do you differentiate people pleasing versus just saying no without guilt?
Well, we innately don't want to disappoint people in our spirits. If somebody asks us to do something, if we could do it, we try to do it. I think for the most part, we try to be agreeable. But a lot of times people, when they know that you're that way, they don't know when to stop. And so they'll just continue to run past these checkpoints. It may not mean anything to them, but they don't understand the amount of effort that I need to be able to do what you're asking me to do on top of my other duties. You don't see what the effort of that is and how that's affecting me. And so to your point, sometimes no is a good thing. And you're not being mean or anything, or it could be no, I can't get to it now. I may be able to do it later. But sometimes you do have to set those boundaries, because if not, it's unfortunate that not a lot of people are diligent in life.
Exactly.
And so when people find when somebody's diligent and they're willing to do it, it's so easy. Oh, yes, we'll give Ashanti 10 more tasks. We'll give Ernest 20 more tasks. He'll do it. It's not a problem. He's done it in the past. But they don't realize the amount of effort that it takes. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, if you're not protecting your boundary space, before you know it, that glass is going to be empty. And when that glass gets empty, it goes into a whole nother dimension. So again, it's all about setting boundaries. And as a leader, you have to be emotionally intelligent yourself to know what your breaking points are. And again, this goes to even in your group or organization. It's very important for one-on-one meetings to let everybody know this is my philosophy, this is my leadership style, and that they can learn how to understand what your breaking points are, and that communication is key. And if you communicate that, hopefully over time, your staff, your organization, people that you're in relationships with, they'll understand that this is nothing personal. This is the way I operate, and this is the way I could be at peak performance.
And with saying that, sometimes it comes to a point where it's becoming like a workforce trauma, because now you're no longer managing the staff on a workforce level. You're managing wounds now, because some staff can't take it as empathy for you because they're focused on what their needs are, and minus that you're human too, and you have your personal needs as well as the space in the workplace to be able to isolate and get things in order, get those projects off the ground. So with that being said, I want to know, how do you come from managing the staff to now you have to manage the wounds of the staff being hurt by something that you didn't intend for them to take it as like, I'm disregarding you, but I do have 17 other portfolios I'm dealing with. Like, how do you manage the wound versus the staff?
Wow, Shanti, that's a that's an amazing question, and it's something that I'm still dealing with, being years into the industry of what I do in project management and things of that nature. I think it's twofold. Number one, I think that, again, and we'll get to our book at the end of this, but I talk about in the law of biblical mechanics, give you an example of change management again, right? And so if something major has to happen and there's changes that need to be done, our human psyche sometimes is resistant to change. We talked about that before. I think, again, it goes back to actually sitting down, one-on-one meetings with everyone in your staff and really getting down to the root of some of their concerns, some of their fears, some of their hopes, desires, and what they're really trying to get out of that position. I think we don't take enough time to do the communication piece. And like I said before, project management is over 90% communication. So to your point, they have to understand where I'm coming from too. I have a lot on the plate. I have multiple disciplines that I'm dealing with on top of meetings, on top of, dealing with administration, dealing with elected officials, dealing with residents, and dealing with regulatory agencies. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And so they have to understand where I'm coming from. If I come across a certain way, it's not because I'm being mean or anything like that. It's just the fact that I think that everyone has their own style. And managing wounds, that's another key thing too, because a lot of people, they react a certain way under stress. And instead of taking it personal, sometimes it's just good to kind of sit down and find out, hey, what's going on? Why did you react that way? I'm not coming down on you. I just want to know what's going on. Is the family life good? What's happening? And so you'll be surprised as leaders that once you have an opportunity to sit down with your group, you'll find out a lot of things that you were not aware of before.
Absolutely.
And I take notes as well because I want to know kind of, my staff. I want to know what makes them up and what motivates them. And when you have those conversations and we get on the same page, the productivity goes through the roof. And I think that that's very important. It's always the human element. People spend more time at their jobs, in their careers, in their businesses than they do at home. And so it's very important. Mental health is another thing too as well. That's really underrated. A lot of people are going through, some episodes of mental health, whether it doesn't have to be anything major, but it could just be a situation where there's past traumas.
Yeah.
People have not been recognized in the roles that they were in. I've had that situation before. And once I understand that, I do try to advocate for them, to try to make those wrongs right if I can to the upper management and things of that nature. But I have to know what I'm working with first before I can make adjustments. So as a good leader, you just have to have your pulse on your people, period. And that a lot of people have a lot of things that they're still dealing with and that they haven't addressed. And you'll find out no one's actually bothered to address it until you've actually sat down and talked to them about it. Right. So again, emotional intelligence is there. You have to take time in your busy schedule. That has to be part of your day or part of your week, just like any other task. I call it walking around. I call it, one-on-one meetings, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't have to be long. It could be a situation where you take your staff out to lunch. I've done that before, on the Fridays or whatever, if we have staff meetings. And I really want people to be candid. I don't want people to feel that they're afraid to speak up about issues that are going on and that they won't be judged by it.
Exactly.
So you want a safe environment where people can do that.
A safe space.
Yes.
And the temperature checks are very important in the workspace.
Yes.
Because you just never know what your coworker could be going through. You never know. And that silence is everything. If you see a coworker that's been social and then all of a sudden they're just quiet, you might want to check in and make sure they're okay. I know a lot of resources are out there
Yes.
for employees, your workforce. Check into it. Check in with your people in culture, human resources to see if there's counseling available to get it off of your chest, off your plate, and take the time off.
Yes.
Like if you get PTO, take it. Like don't be so attached to
Yes.
a position where you can't take the time for yourself to breathe and heal. Because you do still have to come out into this world with people and their different experiences and emotions, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. So,
and I do want to add also to that, it's not easy, and don't
not.
make it sound like this is just 3 steps in a poem.
Right.
It's not, because everyone is different, and you may have a person in your group that's really, really a challenge, and a lot of times, we have so much other things on our plate. I always use the phrase that everybody gets upset with. We don't wipe noses and backsides, right? And so that's something, again, that it's just one of those situations that you have to really be cognizant of.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, once again, it has been an honor sitting here with you. A pleasure to have you, Ernest. If you want to tell the people how they can get in contact with you, talk more about your book, where to
Sure.
find it, can you please end us on that note?
Sure. So the book, The Law of Biblical Mechanics, Principles, and Processes for Management and Stewardship has been out. It's been published since, I want to say since April or May of 2024. We've had several book signings. I've had the pleasure of being invited to speak this year. Got a lot of speaking engagements coming up with different companies and organizations. And we also plan on expanding our podcast to maybe possibly have some guest speakers in the future.
Yes.
So we're excited about that for 2026. But, you know, we've gotten such a great response from our Instagram followers. And I think that it's really, I had no idea the impact would be as great as it has been. But obviously, it's a need that needs to be filled.
Yes.
And so if you want to get in contact with me, the information is there, rcepllc.org, the website, and eroberts at rce@yahoo.com is there too as well. So we have our emails is there. If you go on my Instagram, Ernest R. Roberts, all one word, and we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel.
Yes, subscribe.
And yes, and hit the like button on YouTube as well. So we're here, and again, we'd like to, if you have any questions, feel free to inbox me, and we'll get back to you in an expeditious manner. But we're just excited right now to be able to have these opportunities to kind of reach out. Organizational development sinks, or you can either sink or swim when it comes to leadership, when it comes to these things. It's very, very important that you basically get this knowledge, because again, it's not about the scope, schedule, budget. All of those things are great, but when your organization is not healthy, it's going to be a problem, and it's definitely a critical path to success. Yes. So I want to just reiterate that. It's great to be back with you all, and we're excited about 2026. And there's a lot of things going on. Just keep your mind focused on the Creator and your talents, your gifts. Everyone has something to give, and everybody has something that no one else on this planet has, and it's your opportunity to figure out what your purpose is. So I encourage you to do that.
Absolutely. Well, that was wonderfully said. Thank you, Ernest, so much.
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing from you all. Be tuned for our next podcast. Like we said, we're going to have guests, so look out for that.
Yes.
Subscribe, like, share this video. It will be on YouTube as well as Instagram and Facebook. Once again, have a blessed week, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Take
care.
Bye-bye.
Peace.